Well, worst in the nation is how a report just out today by the Tax Foundation ranks New York when it comes to business climate. And it has Governor Cuomo on the defensive tonight. Joining us now, our political analyst, New York Post state editor, Fred Dicker. Worst in the nation, Fred.
Sad, but not surprising, Liz. Anybody who was up at the Business Council meeting last week on Lake George would know that the business community, of course, remains as worried as it's been for many years that things are getting worse in the state or not getting better. What's really sad about this, though, is not the finding. It was kind of not unexpected, but the governor's reaction. 3 years ago, literally, Liz, the governor in his campaign when he was running for governor was citing the Tax Foundation as evidence that something had to be done to make this state more hospitable to business. We know in the last 8 or 9 months the governor has spent tens of millions of dollars on TV ads, state money on TV ads, saying that things are better. He's got his so-called tax-free or Startup New York program going on. But it's all superficial, as this finding finds. This goes right to the heart of the governor's re-election campaign next year. Today, his people reacted angrily to this finding, ignoring the fact that it was the governor and his people themselves who were citing similar data from the Tax Foundation 3 years ago.
Fred, what could change this? What could turn it around then?
Sure. Well, it's not a surprise. When you look at the report from the Tax Foundation, there are states nearby, New Hampshire, for instance, that rate in the top 10. Not the worst in the nation. And these are states with lower taxes and friendly business climate. This state has been dominated for years, really for decades, by interest groups that have turned the private sector into a golden goose to extract money from without realizing that at some point, as the legendary story goes, you kill the golden goose. That's what's happened in New York. What would have to be done to turn it around is lowering taxes and spending less money. But there are so many special interest groups that depend on this money that it's virtually impossible to do.
Are you talking like lobbyists and unions?
Well, the lobbyists represent the special interest groups. They're not the problem, but it is overwhelmingly the public employee unions, the private sector unions who have extra costs imposed on the state through the Wicks law or the scaffold law. There are so many examples that could be cited. And in addition, it's that New York City mentality, which because of the loss of upstate population is all the more powerful. And New York City is a city which provides enormous services to its citizens because it has so much money to tap from world-class corporations. But upstate, we don't have those corporations, and as a result, the money's just not there. So it is a tale of two states. If you took New York City out of the mix, maybe something could be done. But as long as the New York City politicians, and Governor Cuomo, of course, is from Queens, and he's oriented to the city, as long as they dominate the state, it doesn't appear that fundamental changes can be brought about that will make this a hospitable state to business and get us off this sad list at the bottom of the barrel from the Tax Foundation.
So his hands are kind of tied in a way, and
in my view, Liz, he's allowed them to be tied. He could be taking on these interest groups the way he did the first year. He's chosen not to do so because he's looking at his Democratic Party's left wing as he eyes a possible run for the presidency. He wants to be popular with them, not unpopular with them. And that's why he's nervous, as we've talked about before, about Bill de Blasio being the next mayor of New York City. He doesn't hide the fact that he's very left wing.
All right, well, let's see where all this goes next.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Fred's on the radio, live from the state capitol, every weekday morning, 10 to 11 on Talk 1300 AM.